Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here. As I said, this is really important to be able to just get the word out, and that's what we're doing this fall. And wanting your opinions, your questions. That's the main purpose of this tonight. We've been doing a lot of these. One of the things that we have done is sometimes people don't want to be able to say an opinion or ask a question out loud. So we are actually providing you half sheets of paper. So if you want to write something down, you can go ahead and do it that way too. We are taking notes, so every single comment, every single question is being collated and is going to be put into a report that the building committee is going to get and then go through the whole thing. So there will be pages of them, including the comments that are done on the half sheets. And then we'll make those available online and also on hard copy if someone wants to come into the office to be able to see what all the various things that people said at all the meetings at all three locations, okay? So this last Sunday we were at Pine River. We thought that they should have at least one shot because they are part of the parish too. And so they had a lot of questions and comments that are being included as well. Tomorrow evening at St. Alice is the last one that we have scheduled, okay? So I think that's 8 or 9, I can't remember. So forgive me. The confessional's back there somewhere, so right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the presentation. Come on up, guys. I'm going to do the presentation, and I'm going to do the part that the architects normally did. But I think I've seen this enough, and we've been working on this for the last year that I think it's possible to be able to get through this as well. We've got building committee members here as well. So for those of you online, you won't see this, but I just want them to stand and be recognized so that you can also know who they are. And then if you have any questions at all after Mass or you want to give them a call, you can always do that as well. Okay? All right. So the first thing I'd like to do is invite Deacon Rick up. Deacon Rick is the chair of the building committee. The building committee was formed, it started to be formed even before I arrived. But Deacon will talk a little bit about that before we go into the actual presentation.
Don't usually use this, so. Anyway, as Father mentioned, we started putting together the building committee even before he got here, because one of the things he wanted to do when he came here a little over a year ago was hit the ground running, and we have. And so I worked to, invite people to get a really big cross-section of our parish, and we do have it. We have, because as I told the people, each of us comes to this with a different perspective. You know, our perspective, Father and I, and Father Tim also is up here looking out at you guys. Whereas people with young children, they're thinking about religious ed, crying rooms, different things like that. And you keep moving to middle age, get up to the elderly, then they're wondering about, okay, somebody's coming with a wheelchair or a walker, how do we accommodate them? So it's been a really nice cross-section of people to work with and a lot of different opinions, which is good. And you'll see when we get into the actual layout of the church how all those opinions kind of came together to get what we're proposing to the parish as a design for our new church. So the one document that we used was published by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops called Built of Living Stones, and it provides principles and guidelines for parishes that are going to be building a new church like we are, or doing an extensive renovation. And it provides that and also the theology behind the design of a church. So the first assignment for the building committee was to read the document. And then we came back and talked about that. And then we did several church visits, one in Sauk Rapids, 3 in the Twin Cities. And 4 questions that Father Tony had us ask is, where did they follow the guidelines? Where did they not follow the guidelines? What did you personally like? What did you personally dislike? And we talked about that as a committee. And we used all those visits to kind of give us information and perspectives on what other parishes have done in, say, building a new church or renovating a church, so we can incorporate those, if necessary, into the plans that you're going to see this evening. So hopefully you will enjoy all of this as we get rolling. So.
And those church visits were invaluable, I must say, because we made sure that they were all churches that were built after the publication of the document, so that it was out there. And then our architect took copious notes as we just made those discussions after we did all those visits. So with that, I'm going to get going here, and I'm going to do the presentation. And then any comments or questions that you're going to have, I'm going to ask you to wait until we get through the presentation, and then we can come back to those. And as I said, every one of those is being recorded by Krista today. All right? First of all, the church, the parish, purchased, and I can say this now, we, because I'm part of the we, purchased 40 acres of land, I want to say 8 to 10 years ago. So that land was purchased some time ago. To house the new church. It's located west of 371, right on County 29, which is the border between Nisswa and Pequot Lakes. And the 40 acres is really a beautiful property. Some rolling hills, little valleys, some wetlands and stuff. So we wanted to take advantage of that, and we wanted to bring the church much closer to the main drag than it was previously. If you remember the previous design, it was way back up here, okay? So there's County 29 going west. The location of where we're coming in was actually determined in conjunction with the county and the city, because it's a county road, so they're the ones that determined the best spot, the safest spot. A lot of it had to do with how the road went up and down, and then also there's a curve over here, so they wanted to make it the safest location. When you come in, what you'll notice here is that this blue spot here, excuse me, is where the main building is going to be, the church, social hall, etc. We have parking around it, but we wanted to make sure that we said, what's going to happen with the rest of the property? And so what you can see here is that the rectory, which is being built right at this moment, is located here. Currently, we do have access off of West Twin Lake Drive, and that comes directly to the rectory. So that's there, so Father Tim and I can come in and go out until the church is completed. Once the church is completed, for now, that will only be an emergency access road at this point. Because it's a neighborhood, they don't want a lot of traffic going through the neighborhood. So that's where we are right now. Here you'll see where it was clear cut. We decided to put a cemetery. That actually came, thank you. Sorry. That idea came from the 5 meetings that I held a year ago, if you recall. People thought that since we have the land, we don't have any Catholic cemeteries anywhere nearby. So could we use that as a way going forward? So I was converted at that point. And actually the conversion point came when I was at the bishop's mother's funeral in Wisconsin. And they went right from the church to the cemetery, which was on the same grounds. And I thought, okay, maybe the parishioners are right, and that would be a good thing. We also have located a spot where future religious order could be located. That's something that I know you've worked on in the past, and I would be more than happy to have. And then there would be lots of walking paths all throughout that so that people could come and be able to experience the beauty of that spot. A couple of things that we've talked about. I mean, we could certainly take one of the sets of Stations of the Cross and make beautiful stations walking by there. You can make a rosary walk, a healing garden. There's lots of ideas. Please realize what we're trying to do is have a comprehensive plan. That doesn't mean we're going to do everything at once, but that gives us a comprehensive plan for how we can actually use the land. All right? The next thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to spend some good time with this, is the actual floor plan that we've come up with. You need to understand that with the building committee, we went back and forth on a variety of different options. Some wanted a really thin, narrow church like the traditional ones. Some wanted the wider ones so that you're not too far away from the altar. So the architect was able to come up with a plan that kind of has both of them. Another thing that was really important to us is multi-use spaces. So one way to be able to save some money is not have a bunch of spaces that can only be used like once a week or once every 2 weeks. So to have a lot of spaces that could have a lot of flexibility. So you'll see that in this particular design. The other thing you'll see is it's very compact too. The other thing, when you look at this, which is really important, this area here goes down quite a bit in terms of a valley. And so this area here is where the social hall is being located, because we would have a lot of clear glass plus a small deck, which also serves as an egress for the social hall. So we wanted to take an opportunity to have beautiful views from the place where we would have actually clear glass. In the church, you're not going to have an opportunity to look outside in the church. I will tell you, when I was at All Saints, there was one of the building committee members, "Oh, but I love it when I can look outside the window during Mass and see nature and the deer." And I said, "And what part of Mass were you actually looking out the window and not looking towards the altar?" And then she said, "Oh." So there will be no clear glass in the church, which is why we're trying to take advantage of those views on this side. So what you'll do is you come in here, we're showing a round drive, and then there would be a canopy here, so you could drop someone off right there, and they could get out of their car and be right underneath, out of the rain, snow, whatever the case may be. And then you'd come into this entry point. And at this entry point, you could go straight forward, which brings you to the narthex or the gathering space. If you turn right, what you're doing is you're going into the office suite. And then if you turn left, there'll be a seating area right here. And in that seating area, that will also serve as a buffer before you get into the adoration chapel. So when we were meeting, one thing that was certain with the entire building committee was that the Eucharist had to be at the center of whatever we were doing. That was absolutely essential, which also, since we have an adoration chapel already in the parish, that we wanted to provide that. So I'll just take you in here really quickly. You'd come into a door here, and in the adoration chapel, on this particular wall right here, what we're proposing is taking these two angels and then Jesus as you go out, which actually were together at one point, wherever they came from. Judy, you can ask Judy afterwards where they came from. So they would be together, backlit here, so surrounding the Blessed Sacrament. So that was what we were looking at in terms of the Adoration Chapel. We are going to be putting a committee together. We want to use as many items as we possibly can from St. Christopher's and St. Alice in the new building. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish in some of this. You're not going to see everything here because this is an impression now. We're not at the point of a lot of detail, but that is certainly something we wanted to do. If you go right, you come into the office suite here. So there would be a reception area here, and then there's a door here which gives you some control for the rest of the offices. Over here, there's a conference room, and in the conference room, there would be some cabinetry, including a spot where someone could actually work. So if you have volunteers coming in, if you have the bishop coming in, whatever, there's a place for them to work as an additional spot. The other thing, as I said before, is this room then can be used for meetings. It can be used for faith formation. You'll see a lot of these kinds of things throughout this entire presentation where it can be used for multiple things. Then you come down here, there's private offices. Some of them have like a couple of spots for people that are sharing similar work. So faith formation or finance, that kind of thing. So that would be this way. Then going up over here, this narthex area kind of becomes the heart where you can go all sorts of different ways, all right? You're going to see a lot of arches in this particular building. Arches are a traditional element in church architecture. They're beautiful. Father Tim would be the first to tell you that. And it really does add a nice architectural element to the whole building itself. Here, we're calling it a hospitality room, but it's going to be multi-purpose. So it could serve as a meeting room, but it'll also have windows that open up to the gathering space and windows that open up to the social hall. So that could be a place where you serve coffee, beverages, donuts, whatever. So, for example, you could still do an event here while a different event is happening over here. And that's why we have that. Plus, it could also be a space for faith formation. In the social hall is an interesting design. And the reason why is we wanted to have a social hall that's big enough to accommodate our needs. So in round tables, in this right now, we could accommodate 200 people, all right? Square footage, the way they were talking about it was, it's about twice the size of downstairs here, approximately, okay, in terms of square footage. If you start using longer tables, like at St. Alice, you can fit more people than 200. But remember, you have all these doors that can open up, so if you have overflow, you can use all this as a possible place to have even more people as well, okay? So that multi-use. Over here and over here are going to be opportunities where we can use those banquet style dividers. So we could have one large event, or we could use those, and then you have 3 spaces for faith formation, for other things. As the architect also said, you could have this closed. You could be doing an event here. They could be getting lunch ready, doing all that. And then when it's time for lunch, you open it up, and it's all set up, and no one's been disturbed by the noises, etc. Okay? The kitchen is a spot right now. It's not fully developed, because what will happen is there'll be a subcommittee that will be formed that will include people who use the kitchen regularly. So CCW, Knights of Columbus, people who do the Sunday morning coffee, all those kinds of things. And then they will have a kitchen consultant. The architect firm will provide that so that we can design the kitchen as we want. The approximate size of it is about the same size as the one at St. Francis in Brainerd. We went and took a look at that. It's a beautiful kitchen if you haven't been there, but also it gives us an opportunity to see what they did, what we like, maybe what we'd want to change, but it was certainly enough space. There's also a little laundry, washer and dryer, which could be used for anything that you do in the kitchen. It could be used for the quilters, all sorts of different things. This is going to be on the camera, so I want to say this for sure. So at St. Francis, they do those fish fries on Fridays during Lent. The ladies use the washer to put ice in so they can have their wine bottles in there. So it's very multi-use, just saying, okay. I just tattled on them too, which is great. Okay, so that is the social hall. Then you have a very large set of bathrooms. And ladies, I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 stalls in the ladies, this one right here. But that's the main bathroom, but there are other smaller ones as well. There's one right here. So when you have adoration after hours, we would be able to lock these doors and this door and this door, so when people are coming for adoration, they'd have access to the chapel and a bathroom, but wouldn't have access to the whole building. Okay? Up in this area, this entrance right here, Journey to Recovery is an important thing we do. We host 12-step groups, etc. And so this would provide them an entrance here. This could also be locked here. We would provide cabinetry, coffee makers, all that in there. And they would also have access to a bathroom. But then they wouldn't have access to the entire building because they don't need that access. So it gives us a way to be able to close off the areas that we don't need to have open at times as well. What you'll see here in the faith formation area, these are rooms that are specifically geared to meetings, faith formation, quilters, whatever. Two of the rooms here, these are all standard classroom size. Two of the rooms here would be rooms on their own, and we show you different configurations of how you could do those rooms. But this room will also have another one of those banquet room dividers. So it could either be one large room, like for an AA group, for example, or it could be divided into two for faith formation. All right? So again, multi-use. There's also a storage room here and a storage room here. We understand you need to have a lot of storage. There's a huge storage room here in the social hall. So that, let's say the quilters want to use this room, then they could have all their stuff there, for example. Okay? All right, and then down, I'm going to go to the church last, sorry. Then down here, you'll see another room here that comes right off of the church. It's called Musical Children's Chapel Formation. Lots of uses over here. But this would be an opportunity where the musicians could come. There's an actual music storage area right there. And they could practice there before Mass if they wanted. So if people wanted to pray, then you have a place where they could practice. And then there's two doorways here, plus there would be sound deadening here. So that way then, if they're practicing, you can still do something in the church, and then they have easy access to where the musicians are going to be, so real easy. We saw this at the church in Sauk Rapids, and it was really cool how they could do that and then come right in for Mass, no problem. So it was quite nice. But we also know that Children's Chapel here is very important. So we wanted to have rooms that were easily accessible from the church to do that as well. It could possibly happen here, or it could possibly happen in one of these rooms here, because there's an entrance right over there. So they wouldn't be going downstairs or upstairs or anything like that. It would be right there. Okay? All right. Right, there's a bathroom here too. One of the ideas, it was actually a St. Christopher parishioner, that they said oftentimes you have elderly who are coming, but they might need to halfway through the Mass use the restroom. But they want to sit up front because they can see better, hear better. So the idea was to have a restroom that was kind of closer there, so that would be good for not just elderly, but parents that want to take their kids and change them real quickly and all that. And remember, there's two doors to get there, so again, that sound deadening would certainly happen there. So just counting right now in terms of faith formation, so you can see how many places we could do faith formation at the same night. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 rooms that are separate, that are not the church, are not the adoration chapel, where you could be doing faith formation or other meetings all at the same time. Lots of flexibility there. Then this room here would be a place, there will be glass here with sound in here. That could be the cry room. So if you need to take your child, it's right here. You could go out this door and come right in there. It would also be the bride's getting ready room. So we would have a counter there with a huge mirror and chairs to put up your makeup or whatever you do. And then there would also be a seating area where you could have meetings there, you could have faith formation. Again, multi-use is what we were looking for to keep the square footage under 30,000 square feet, okay? Family room, that's what we call it, the family room. So, right, so if you have a funeral visitation before the funeral, you could have the casket here, for example, but then the family would have that separate room where they can get away, be private. Sometimes you need that. I know at St. Francis, we added that there, and it's used a ton for funerals and weddings and all sorts of things, okay? I think I got all the ancillary spaces, so now we're going to go into the church. We'll get there. One thing you're going to see is there's just very small mechanical area here. That's because there will be a small basement underneath, but it's not for public. That's where we're going to put almost all the mechanical stuff, all right? And when we get to showing you what the social hall area is going to look like, you'll see that deck also then covers up where the air handlers are going to be underneath. It provides the air that you need. So that way then we can have that all under there and not on this floor. The other thing you're going to find is there's not an elevator here. So we did make the decision to have everything, since we have a lot of space, on one level. So you will come in off the street level and you will never have to go up anything in the main church, except if you're going to be coming up to the sanctuary, which will be 5 steps up. But I'll show you there's going to be some ramps that go up there. That's actually required by code, but I think we did a nice job with that as well. So the church itself, as I said before, some wanted it narrower, some wanted it wider. We found a way to make it feel kind of like it's narrow on top, but it really has 4 sections of pews there. This area is where you come in. You'll have the baptismal font right at the main entrance there. There'd be the 4 sections. There's going to be 2 massive beams that come from here and here that are going to hold the load of what we'd say walls that hold clerestory style windows and the roof, so that when you're sitting in the pews, there will be no obstructions towards the sanctuary, okay? So we will not have lots of pillars that you'd have to look around if you're sitting in any of the pews, all right? Typical apse here. Then what you'll see is there's little dots, these white dots. Those represent chairs that we would have up for the summer, as well as like Christmas and stuff like that, all right? When we were looking at trying to keep it to under 30,000 square feet, we said we are not going to compromise on the size of the church, because we wanted to be able to have, for most of the summer, everybody inside the church proper. There will be times where we will need to use chairs coming out this way, and we're thinking 4th of July, we know how big it is here, maybe Memorial Day or Labor Day weekend, and maybe Christmas. But aside from that, all the rest of the weekends, everyone should be able to fit within the church itself. During the winter, during the 9 months, we would not have any of these chairs set up here in the main church, except maybe to have some spaces for the choir members. They put in storage here that's just for chairs that would be from the church. So again, providing a place for those as well. Let me see here. There's a vesting sacristy and a main work sacristy. Again, here, if you're the sacristan, you're bringing up the vessels and everything from the back all the way up to here. So those would be located right near where you need them, which is here. But we'd still provide a space where the priest could vest. We have 2 confessionals. Again, the sound deadening will be very important for both of these confessionals as well. One thing that I did not say that we want to make sure we do is provide spaces where we have the memory of these two churches within the building itself. So what we're proposing is that the social hall would be called the St. Christopher Hall, and the Faith Formation Center would be the St. Alice Faith Formation Center. In the church, we would have 6 devotional areas. Mary and Joseph towards the front, but on the side here as you come in, St. Christopher, St. Alice, and then up here, St. Clare and Divine Mercy, because those are important for our parish. Here, there's a liturgical storage as well as anything for sound and stuff that we would need to store over there. The choir is located right over here. So again, it's located near the front, near the sanctuary, but not in the sanctuary. And that would allow us to have whoever's singing to come to the ambo for the psalm and those kinds of things, okay? I think I'm ready to go to the drawings. What do you think?
The church has 900 people.
Thank you. So, in the pews, depending how wide you want to measure you, in the pews you could sit anywhere from 600 to 800 people. Using the chairs, you can get just over 900 people within the church proper itself. During the summer, what we're averaging right now on the non-big weekends is about 700 to 750 on Sunday mornings. So that's why we needed to build a church big enough to accommodate that, plus some growth as well. Okay? But we didn't want to make it such that during the winter, when in January, February, and March, we're going to have maybe 350 total people, that it wouldn't feel like it's cavernous. So the chairs will be gone, and then you could really, it would be roomy, but it's not going to feel like only 20% of the church is full. Okay. Yes, so we have a traditional apse kind of situation here, and then the ramps going up into the sanctuary here. So a person that needs to use that and not the stairs could come right up here, then come out here and say, for example, read or whatever, okay? All right, let's get to some other drawings here. And thank you, building committee members. If I forget something, just yell it out. All right. So we went back and forth on what the exterior might look like. Do we want to make it look like it's North Woods, or do we want to make it look like it's a light and something that is a light for the area? And so we went with the light version, not a lot of timber and stuff. The other thing too is when the bishop decided to make it St. Clare, we took some cues from the Basilica of St. Clare in Assisi. So the stonework has some horizontal kinds of variation, for example. Here you see the arch coming here. This upper area, this is the church here. There's a cupola above here, so that would let in natural light all down right over where the sanctuary is going to be. Again, so you want that light coming where you want the most important spots. Over here, that's the offices. That's the social hall. And you can also see some clear windows in the social hall, so you'll get a lot of natural light there as well. Here is the Adoration Chapel. That's that other room we talked about for choir and other things. And then these are the stained glass windows. We purchased stained glass windows from a closed and torn down church in Hibbing, Immaculate Conception. The stained glass windows were in really, really good shape. They're the original 15 Mysteries of the Rosary. The parish is still going to be called Our Lady of the Lakes. So we wanted to bring some elements of Our Lady into the building. And so those are those stained glass windows. We bought all of them, 15 of them, for $30,000. If you had them made new, it would be at least $300,000. And they're not in need of repair. So they're in usable condition right away. Okay? So that's that there. This is another view from the other side. So you can see here, there's that cupola, there's that upper part. The lower part is part of the church. And then here, that's where those classrooms are that I was talking about, the faith formation rooms here. On the outside, the architect is also proposing to have statues of St. Alice and St. Christopher. Again, another way to incorporate the memory there. And then over here is the social hall side. So if you remember, I said it goes really, really far down, so it'd have a beautiful view from these windows here. And so then you'd have this small deck, which also is egress. So we'd have a stairwell down here, but here on this side, you would come out right at street level. So once again, it's both utilitarian and beautiful. So you can imagine having a anniversary reception or anything, or Sunday after when you're having coffee, you can come out here on a beautiful day and enjoy that. So, and then underneath here is where all the louvers for the air handlers and everything would be for the mechanical stuff downstairs. Okay? We're going to put all these out here once this presentation is done so you can see them even closer, all right? Yes? The church the question was how old the church was where the stained glass windows came out. It was built in the early 1950s. So it was built in the early 1950s. So the windows would be probably around 70 to 75 years old. But when they were put in with protective glass on the outside, etc. So they really are in fantastic shape. They don't have cracks. The leading is not going. So, well, when you see them, I can show you some pictures. Now, this is, let's start. I think this is wrong. These were put not in order. This is the first one we wanted to see here. So when you come in, as I said, when you come into those main doors, and then you would have the office to the right, the adoration chapel to the left. If you go straight ahead, you'd be coming into the gathering space, or the technical term is narthex. What you're going to do is you're going to come in and see an image of St. Clare herself, with maybe even a saying, we become what we love, and who we love shapes what we become. So the architects saw this image that we've used on our newsletters, and they liked it, and so they wanted to incorporate it. It has maximum value when you come in and you'd see something like that there. If you remember, I said arches. So you're coming through an arch to get into this area. Then you'd have major arches. Here would be the church. Going forward, the St. Alice Faith Formation Center. And then going to the right would be the St. Christopher Hall. So you get your bearings on how you'd be coming. So if you come in and turn left, what you're going to see is this here. So big arch, lots of windows, and being able to look into the church. These doors could be kept wide open so that we could put chairs here. I think it's 44 that we're looking at, that we could put right in this area alone for extra seating capacity. This I'll get to the very end, because that's what you're going to see when you leave the church itself. Now we come to this. So this is the church itself. One of the things that we knew was the stained glass windows are the original 15 mysteries of the Rosary. But we kept on trying to figure out, how are we going to do the luminous mysteries, the 5 luminous mysteries? And the architects had what they call a Holy Spirit moment. Thought, wait a second, the baptismal font is going to be just as you walk in. And the first luminous mystery is the baptism of the Lord. The 5th mystery is the institution of the Eucharist. And as you walk up the aisle, the Eucharist takes place in the sanctuary. So the idea is that we would do something at the font. Maybe it's the wording that says, "This is my beloved Son," whatever. And then going up the aisle, you'd have a mosaic of the wedding at Cana. Jesus preaching the kingdom, the transfiguration, and then when you get to the altar, what they're talking about here in this high altar would be a gold mosaic with a monstrance. So St. Clare held up the monstrance and saved the city of Assisi with the Blessed Sacrament. But also, that's the most important spot in the church, And lastly, that is the fifth luminous mystery. So that's what we were thinking when we did that there. The church also, as you can see, here's these big beams. Those are massive beams that would be running the whole length and holding up all of this here. Okay? And so that means that in any of the seats, all the way even to the side, you'd be able to have unobstructed views directly to the altar itself. You can see the use of the color of blue for Our Lady, obviously. You can see where that cupola is that lets in natural light down here. The back area here would be, so it's an apse, so it's like a half dome. That would be painted blue with gold stars. That's a traditional way for honoring Our Lady, okay? Then they're looking at maybe putting in a rood beam here. It's a traditional architectural thing in churches. And on top of that would be the crucifix itself. On the sides, where the ambulatories are, where you can walk, there would be arches coming all along those sides as well. And then you can see a little bit here of the music area right here. You can see Mary and Joseph here. Also on the back here where we have that apse, that's where you would have the ramps coming up to the sanctuary. So you see that on each side here. So coming out and then coming back here. There'd also be some arches on that curve. And we were thinking you could have images from the life of St. Clare, for example. The other thing too is the church actually says that if possible, the preference is that the altar should be made completely of stone. So we were able to find from a closed church in Ohio, the altar, the high altar, and the amber pulpit in marble. If we were to have a simple one built from scratch, just the altar itself would be about $50,000. But we're able to buy all of that for $10,000. So, and it's beautiful marble. It's really beautiful marble. So that's what would be over here. Again, these are impressions. Some things might change. If you say some things, they might change too. And then looking back, when you're leaving church, you can see there are, at the very back, these massive beams or these massive pillars that are going to be holding up that long beam going on each side. You can see the arching here. And then that's the 15th window that we have. It's a rose window. The coronation of Our Lady as Queen of Heaven and Earth. Okay? You can see right here, that's that cry room, bride room, faith formation room, family room, etc. That's the door, you can see that's to the vesting sacristy. And then going out here, that's the door that would lead to where the adoration chapel is and that small bathroom, etc. Oh, thank you. One of the things that we would do is we would have a digital organ, just like we have here. But we wanted to be able to provide a way to have the speakers, but you don't see them. We went into a couple of the churches that did have digital organs, but they had the speakers like on the back wall. We just didn't like seeing them. And so the architect came up, and also the organ consultant, you met Peggy, said most of that sound should be coming somewhere here from the back. And then maybe having a couple speakers here to provide that for the choir as well as antiphonal sound. So what she did was these areas here would be recessed. We could put the speakers there and then cover it in speaker fabric the same color as the walls, so you wouldn't lose the beauty of the church itself. So I thought that was a way to really do it nicely. All right, last one, and then it's your turn. Okay, social halls. So when you come into this entry here, so remember, as I said, orienting yourself, you come in, left is the church, straightforward, faith formation, right is the social hall. So that's that arch that you would see coming right in here. When you get into here, you'd be seeing this. This is facing east, lots of window. These two areas here would also be those double doors that you could go out onto that deck area, but also be egress as well. And then right over here, you see this here, that's where we could bring those room dividers, so you could have the three areas as well, which also means that if you're here or here, you also have immediate egress outside if needed, all right? And then if you're over here facing this way, this is kind of how you would see it. And that's what we're looking at until the last thing is, so if you're going out of church or out of the social hall and going back outside that main entrance, we thought that would be an opportunity to put a saying. This would be the last words of St. Clare before she died to her sisters. Go forth in peace, for you have followed the good road. Go forth without fear, for God who created you has made you holy, has always protected you, and loves you like a mother. Okay, so now it's an opportunity for you, for your questions and comments. And what I'm going to do, because we want everyone who's going to see it on the video to know what the question is, you ask it, I'll repeat it, and then we'll try to answer it if we can. Yes, Deacon.
Explain why a red roof?
Oh, the red roof. If you go to Italy, Assisi, a lot of the roofs are clay tiles, so they're red roofs. So the idea was to bring that color there. Clay tile in this climate is not good to have. It's not durable. So right now we're showing it red, but as asphalt shingles. Of course, we could look, someone said, well, what about, like a steel roof and all these other, lots of possibilities. We're not there yet, but we're showing you the impression of what it could look like. But I would say that we went a whole year really going back and forth on these areas and wanted to try to answer as many questions as we could before they were asked, but that doesn't mean that's going to happen. And I'm going to repeat this too. My best example of why we do this is when we do the presentations at St. Francis for the addition, there were a couple things that at meetings like this, parishioners detested. And one of those big things was we had a 2-level gathering space because we needed to figure out, okay, we wanted people to come in on street level, so you're not coming upstairs or a ramp outside during winter, but also we wanted to have that gathering space on the same level as the church. And St. Francis's church, you have to go up 8 steps to get there. So she came up with a 2-level gathering space. They didn't like it. We went back to the drawing board. We came back and we showed them what is now built, and they loved it. So that's why these gatherings are so important. Okay. Questions and comments? Well, we haven't gotten to that point, but obviously in the church, we're looking at hard surface for the most part. One of the things that you will find is carpeting under pews. After 29 years of priesthood, they're terrible. They're hard to clean. When you replace them, and commercial carpeting you should replace every 7 to 8 years, you have to take up every single pew. And then for music, it's terrible because you can't hear yourself sing and stuff. So it'll be hard surface. What they've done in other places is you might have some nice tile or stonework, but maybe under the pews you just have polished concrete, for example. So those are the options. There'll be carpeting in different places, but we'll get to that. And budget will, help us to make some decisions.
What about the pews? So like here it's hard, St. Alice has the...
Yes. The question is, what about the pews? We haven't made decisions about the pews, but I will tell you what I did in one previous one where we had to get new pews. We had the pew manufacturers, they have sample pews and kneelers. So we actually had them bring in, and for one weekend, people could sit and kneel, and we let them vote. Which ones did you like the best? So, and ironically, we ended up not having cushioned pews because of the way that the pews now could be contoured. They were really supportive for the back and stuff. And so they actually liked the wooden ones because they were the most comfortable. And then kneelers are really important, as you know. So So.
What was the amount you said those stained glass windows probably could have cost if they were new?
If they were new, the question was what they could have cost. I mean, this is a guesstimate, but I'm guessing around $350,000. Before I left Duluth, we had beautiful older stained glass windows at St. Mary's Star of the Sea, but one Sunday they had separated. Now, what had happened was they had never done them properly. So when you do an outside window to protect them, you have to provide some airflow. If you don't, it gets really hot in there, and then it starts melting the leading in between all the stained glass. That's what happened. They started separating. We actually had to bring in a stained glass company, which is in Minneapolis. They both repair them and they make new ones. Just to repair 2 large stained glass windows and 2 smaller stained glass windows was $165,000. There's a church in northeast Minneapolis. They never had stained glass windows. St. Charles Borromeo. I don't know if any of you have ever been there. It's a big church. And they put new stained glass windows finally. This Gate Studios in Minneapolis. It's one of the, I don't know any other big stained glass window manufacturers in Minnesota. They did the stained glass windows there. And that was, I think, about 10 years ago. $2 million to put in stained glass. Stained glass is not cheap. At All Saints, which I was the one that raised the money for, we bought the salvage rights to St. Margaret Mary Church in Duluth because I knew they were going to be torn down. I knew the pastor and the bishop, and I came to them before it was torn down to say, we're going to be building a new church eventually in Baxter. Don't you think it'd be good if we got all sorts of stuff because we don't have any? They said, great idea. I talked to the pastor. He said, look, if you pay for the demolition of the building, you can have whatever you want. So we got everything in there for $65,000. The stained glass windows we got, and the person, we had it taken out professionally. Those stained glass windows at All Saints, we got for $65,000. They had a value of over $250,000. So, but it'd be hard to manufacture those nowadays too. So, yes, Cecile. Our windows are in storage with the diocese in heated storage. They were taken out professionally by the same outfit that I had done. They do this all the time. They're stored well in crates, and they're ready to go when we are ready to go. Sure. Any question and comment is good. So. The marble altar. Right. The marble altar. And what else was marble? The marble altar, the marble high altar, which will come with a tabernacle, and the pulpit or ambo. Oh, okay. So 3 items. And was that from an old church? This was from a church that was torn down in Akron, Ohio. And I think the church was torn down maybe 10, 15 years ago. But there's an outfit that saves stuff like this so that other churches can eventually use it. It's been in heated storage. We actually, the Finance Council said they were in favor of it, but they wanted to make sure someone actually went and saw it. Well, one of our building committee members actually had a business meeting in Cleveland, Ohio. So actually went there and got to see all of it personally, and it's in very good shape. And it's all secured. And they will keep it stored for us until we need it, and then they themselves will move it and set it up because they know how to do it.
What happens to all of our stuff here?
As I said, we're going to have a committee that is going to take a look at everything we have, and whatever we can use, we'll use somewhere in the building. Some things were easy to be able to do. So, for example, the stained glass windows here, we knew we wanted them to be somewhere and somewhere prominent. But as soon as I saw them years ago, I remember thinking, and this was before I ever thought I'd ever be here, I remember seeing them. I said, well, those are nice, but they're adoring something. And what are they adoring? And then I went out that door and went, there he is, right over there. Jesus is holding himself in the Eucharist. And I said, man, That would really look nice if it was like in an adoration chapel someday. I never would have guessed that I would be in a position where we might be able to do just that. So bringing them together would bring them back to the way they're meant to be, actually, which would be beautiful. But for example, now one more thing I just want to make. For example, if we have that other altar, the marble altar, I'm thinking, why couldn't we use St. Christopher's altar as the main altar in the adoration chapel where we have the monstrance, and we need a tabernacle there anyway, so you're not running back and forth with the Eucharist. You'd have it right there for reposing and exposing, for example. And it would be a bigger adoration chapel than what we have. I think we could accommodate, I thought we said about 20 or 25 people if necessary, so I'm sorry.
So as you went through the church and you showed the entrance and exit and that,
Right.
it seemed to be just to the main church, like that main entrance in the back. Are there other entrances and exits?
Let's go back to that.
I just couldn't.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where I put that. Right. So, coming in, we would want people to come in off the main entrance and off of this entrance as well. So coming here and then using those entrances to come into the church. So you could come in here, you could come in here, or you could come in here. But for exiting, for emergencies and all that, we also have ones in the corners here. So there's, to exit out of here, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places where you could go. One of the difficulties that I have, I'm going to be honest, is at both St. Alice and St. Christopher's, people are like rats leaving a ship. They go out here, they go out here, they go out there, and they go out there and there. So you have all these multiple places. And I said, I never know where to greet people because they're going out all over the place. St. Alice is the same thing, back or to the sides. And so in terms of encouraging them for hospitality, for donuts, all that kind of stuff, if most of them are coming here, you can have your tables out there for advertising some big event that's coming up. They'll come and they'll have the donuts and coffee afterwards. Or what we're doing now at St. Alice once a month, wine and cheese after Mass once a month. So the idea here is you want to be able to funnel them in a particular way. And you want them to be coming in through the main entrances if possible. But we still need that exits for like other things. You had a follow-up.
Well, I just was curious because I'm trying to like picture the
Depth. We had that. We don't. Okay, so this is one of the difficulties where they're not here because they came up with a slide. We asked them to come up with a slide that showed where you would be if you were in the back row of St. Christopher's. And that is right about here. Right. But they're not going to hear you on the video. So that's right about here. So if you go 5 pews from here, that's where, if you're in the last pew, you'd be as close to that, to the altar there. All right? St. Alice is about like right up here, but that's not including the overflow where people are sitting constantly. And then if you've ever been to St. Francis, right here, that second pew from the back. But now I'm also going to add something else. We went back and forth about whether we should have a slope towards the altar or not. And it was like half and half on the building committee. We had a lot of half and halves on the building committee. But we ended up saying flat because it was better for people who have handicaps, wheelchairs, caskets, but also how do you deal with a slope floor, but then you have all these entrances here, and how do you deal with that kind of stuff? What we opted for was having a higher sanctuary. So here we have 2 steps up. St. Francis has 3 steps up. St. Alice has 3 steps up. To get to the sanctuary here, 5 steps. So it's going to be a higher sanctuary than what we experience in any of our churches here. So it's 5 steps up to get to there. Okay? Okay. Cecile, did you have another?
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. That
Sure.
Several times when you have a special priest here,
Yes.
some fundraiser for orphanage, whatever, or other events that aren't priests, I always feel bad because we park by that door, Larry always wants to go out that door.
Yeah.
And I think, I always feel like going back that street.
Sure.
And when you're having most people exit the same door, I think it will be better for those type of events.
Thank you. So the comment for those on the video is that whenever we have visiting priests, missionaries, etc., people are going all sorts of exits, so it would be good to have one central area where at least they're coming. Did I get that right?
And Father, I was just going to ask, you haven't mentioned anything about acoustics,
Yes.
especially in the social room.
Right.
I've been in a church in their gathering room where the acoustics are terrible.
St. Andrews.
Yes.
So the question was, what are we going to do about acoustics? Was in a church and the sound was terrible. It's very loud, etc. So I'm sorry. You got to remember, I was in Brainerd when that was happening.
And we're former members of
I know. So, so one of the things you have to pay attention to is acoustics. Our architectural firm that we have is going to be bringing in an acoustical consultant that will help us in the church as well as in other areas, all right? One of the things that in social halls you have to really be careful about is too much reverb. Now in a church you want some of that because the music, the ability to be able to have the organ sound better, piano, all those kinds of things. But you still need some ways to control some of that. And so you need to have acoustical consultants. Nowadays, they don't tend to put speakers in one area for everybody. They tend to have multiple speakers closer to the people is what they tend to do nowadays. But again, it's going to be an acoustical consultant that will help us with that. If you remember back in the church, which one is it? This one here, I think. No. I'm going to keep on going until it's probably the last one, so, oh well. Yes, of course it was. You'll notice here on these massive beams, you're not seeing wood there. So the architect actually put in some acoustical fabric because thinking we're going to still need to have some absorption somewhere. The acoustical consultants will help us with that, but that's why you see this, and that would be an opportunity to put some design, maybe wording, whatever you want to do. But that's why she's showing this, because we're going to need some of that in the church if we have hard floors and hard ceilings and everything like that. In the social hall, I will tell you, I am a firm believer in carpeting in social halls. It really helps deaden the sound and not have all that reverb. The church you were referring to ended up putting a lot of acoustical tiles after the fact up in the ceiling, but it's still not enough. I think if they really want to control it, they're going to have to put in commercial carpeting, at least part of it. So, and that's one of the things, having done this a number of times, I've also made mistakes. But I won't tell you them. No, sorry.
In the social hall, there was a storage room off there.
Right.
I wasn't sure, are these tables going to be able to fit in there? Is that space?
Right.
Where will they go?
That's why this storage room is huge, and there's double doors here and double doors here. They would, yes, so they're huge. So I think if you went downstairs here at St. Christopher's, in that big storage room where you have tables and stuff, those are big double doors. Well, you're going to have two big double doors opening onto that area there. So it's a huge storage area. The idea was specifically so you can store tables and chairs in there as well. Good question. Ralph?
Just thinking way ahead, in terms of the church body itself, do you envision how communion will be provided?
The question was how communion might be done in the church.
It looks like there's
So we didn't until someone asked that question at one of the meetings here. And taking a look at it, here at St. Christopher's, we have basically 4 stations, because we have 4 sections of pews. If you think of it that way, it seems natural that you'd have 4 sections over here. If there's bigger masses where we have like 4th of July, we obviously will have to provide some more communion ministers, but there are ways to do it. One of the things that I think the cathedral in Duluth does very well is they have like 2 people giving communion here, and then you have 2 people right up against here, so people can come like this or that for some of those bigger masses. Certainly you could do that. I think there's a value to having people walk up to communion rather than, but sometimes you just got to provide the communion ministers here too.
And Father,
Yeah, please.
I'm not sure if this question is right here, but you mentioned a Catholic cemetery.
Right.
Do you know when that would be available?
So the question was Catholic cemetery, when that might be available. So one of the things that we have to deal with is permissions. Okay? So diocese, county, city, and state. Okay? Now, I will tell you, Tuesdays I'm usually in Duluth. And so earlier today, I actually handed to the business manager of the diocese our request for initial permission to go ahead to get the rest of those permissions from the civic entities. So we've started the process. We have a complete plan for it right now. So on the site plan here, where you see the cemetery here, it's actually the shape we're hoping it to be. So you would come in here, and there'll be a circular drive here, and we'd like to have some sort of feature. One of the names I threw out, because we're Our Lady of the Lakes, was maybe the cemetery could be Our Lady of Sorrows, for example. And you could have like a Pietà statue eventually there. You'll see there's some other ancillary roads that come here and around here. My understanding is that was done so you never have to carry a casket too far. When we would start this, we would probably start just in this area here, and then we could expand it. I think we're looking at 2,000 spaces in the cemetery eventually, but we wouldn't start with that. 2,500. So, and then we'd have columbariums. If you don't know what that is, it's where you can put the ashes, right? And so they've been looking at pricing, but we do have a design already for the cemetery. That's now in the diocese's hands, so we'll see how long that takes. And once we get the okay from them to start doing the other okays, we'll keep working towards that. Okay? I will keep you informed. I promise that. I'm trying to keep you informed as best as I can. So, Cecile. Sure. This is your opportunity.
I was wondering about and maybe you don't go into this yet, the landscaping. They aren't going to go in there and have people cutting down a bunch of trees, are they? So you get a professional.
Okay.
And that's beautiful white pine trees.
Right. So the question was, are we landscaping? We're not going to have people just cutting down trees willy-nilly. So the staff know that I didn't understand the clear cutting of that large area. So when we weren't close to building. Now, there was a reason that they did it, to show, some movement and stuff. But I wouldn't have clear cut. Huh? I think to show movement of going forward, that kind of thing. But when you have someone comes and takes a different view of things, I couldn't understand why you'd have the church so far away from the main road. I think you should be able to see it as soon as you're turning in, basically. Secondly, I think you need to take advantage of the natural topography. So what you do is you take a look at the site, and then you design accordingly. I think initially, I think that there was a desire to have the church designed in a certain way, and so they put it where you could do it, rather than saying, what is the space telling us? It's a different way to look at things, not one right or wrong, but different eyes say, well, and then the other thing too was, I like to work with committees, and so that's why it was important that we started with a building committee that was representative of the parish and had some experts in a variety of different areas. We've had some interesting conversations, but that's what allows us to get to this point. So,
Where this church is being built, this is up north, this is what.
right, sure.
And pine trees, I think, are just about number one.
So, yeah, pine trees are number one for everyone online. So, no, and we're not going to cut them willy-nilly, but there will have to be a bunch cut. But we're not going to cut them unless we actually need to. So, like in this area here, a lot of that's going to stay very natural, and then you'll be able to see that beauty. We'll want to be able to have where you can walk through God's beautiful nature and have peace. You know, I've been thinking, a lot of people have hurts, all sorts of different kinds of hurts. Wouldn't it be nice to have a healing walk that people could do? Even other people in public that aren't Catholic can come there, and who knows what the Lord is going to do with them when they come on the site. So those are the things that I think are very important. The idea is that we would maybe use one of the sets of stations that we have in the church and one set for stations outside. That's a suggestion at this point. We haven't made any decisions. And then the other thing too is Deacon said, you know, I wanted to hit the ground running. That's a quote from the bishop to me. I will tell you exactly what the bishop said to me. He said, they have waited too long. And he said, I hate to do this because I like having you at the cathedral and I like having you nearby. But he said, I want someone who's built to get there and get this done. And then he said, and hit the ground running. That's a quote directly from him to me. So then I quoted the rest of you all. I said, we're going to hit the ground running. So that's what we've done. But please remember, this has been a question mark for 30 years. There was a diocesan strategic plan 30 years ago that said when St. Christopher or St. Alice, either one needs to build, they should come together and build a new one between them. And then there was other building projects. I mean, Judy could show you plans for one. I could go and show you plans at St. Alice. There have been lots of plans. I have to tell you, at one of our meetings a year ago, one of the parishioners who normally goes to church here said to me, Father, I just don't have any confidence that this will actually get done. And I said, then you don't know me. I said, this is not going to be the first time in my priesthood that I don't get a job done that the bishop asked me to do. Now, but the reason is because we need to get this answered and done.
Will you include that in some of your
Will I include that? I have.
bishops hit the ground running?
I actually did at those meetings a year ago. I said the bishop told me to hit the ground running. So, but so, you know what? This thing I know, sometimes you need to say things 7 times for people to hear it. So if you were at any of those meetings, you will remember I said 7 times, the old plan is going away, the old plan is going away, the old plan is going away, because we really needed to understand we're starting from scratch. And I wanted to make sure that all the parishioners had an opportunity. So one thing that you will know is the different groups, at least their leaders, met with someone from the building committee and said, what are your needs? What are your desires? So that was all part of the process too. Now this is where the parish in general can reflect back on what you've seen and any ideas or questions you have. So now, is every single parishioner going to have seen this stuff? No, they're not. But that's a choice that they're making. But I can say that we honestly gave them 8 or 9 opportunities to do so publicly. I'm happy to go to homes. And then now Mike had this great idea, get it on a recording so people can see the presentation. So it's there unless you don't want to see it. So, yes, Deb.
The future ball fields in the building.
Right. So this is so the building's right here, Faith Formation is here. The reason why we thought you could have some future fields there, so for like youth games and all that kind of stuff that you have. Tomorrow night, while I'm going to be at St. Alice doing the same presentation, they're going to be out there having a barbecue and a fire. So if you've gone to this, you can go there. You don't have to come to another presentation. But then also what we're thinking about, this was an idea we got from the building over here, perhaps having a garage that on one side has storage, but on the other side has like a picnic pavilion where you could have events and stuff like that. That was the idea I got from the one right here. Yes, please.
On your rendition of the social hall looking east,
This one.
yeah. Now, is that a pretty steep decline from the church? Is that pretty steep in there?
It eventually gets very steep. So it starts, the question was, is it steep on that side? It starts gradual, and then it kind of goes even more. So,
Well, I guess my only concern would be not have grass in there that somebody has to mow.
the concern was who has to mow the grass. Right, yeah. Yeah, the steep sides. Just as what Cecile said, we haven't gotten to the landscaping yet. Is it possible that we might do something else, like have bushes and other things that don't need to be mowed? Of course it is. But we're not at that level of detail yet. But now that you've said that, that will be in all of the comments. So that will be something that we will have to pay attention to. And you'll be the first one. What they said was that's a sliding hill. So everyone here is going to bring their toboggans when we have that hill. All right, good. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Well, here and then here.
Hitting the ground running, what's the timeline?
Timeline. So I really didn't know a timeline, but I thought, well, let's see what we can do. The planning took longer than I expected, to be quite honest. That's because we had lots of interesting discussions on the building committee. But they were good, because the final product that came out of this, I remember when the architects came, the last meeting that we had, and they started showing this, I think there were a lot of jaws on the table. Because we all said, how did you take all these disparate ideas and you brought them together? It took a while to get there. It really did. And you can just ask another building member, not now, afterwards, how long it took. So, right now, this is really general, okay? Once we finish our work here, and once the building committee comes back to review everything that has been said, then we'll say, okay, are there adjustments that we need to make to this building, okay? Then, next year, capital campaign. And we're going to see how well we do on the capital campaign. If we do well in the capital campaign, the other thing too is we have 2 big properties we need to sell too. And that money would be going towards the building of the new building. So those are things that have to happen. As I said at those meetings 5 years ago, when Father Michael Gary was the temporary administrator here, he got a letter from the city of Nisswa. I've been very public about this and open, saying they would like to buy the property and then lease it back to us for $1 a year until the new building is done. I haven't moved on that. Yep. I haven't moved on that. And the reason I haven't moved on that is because I said, I did meet with the city manager just for coffee, just to say, this is where we are, this is what we're doing. Are you going to still be interested? Because I know you'll have a process and we'll have a process. So I said, as we move along, we'll talk. So that's the only thing that I've done thus far with that. So then you have the sale of properties and stuff. If all that goes well in 2025, it certainly is conceivable that you could start building in 26. But that would be the earliest we'd be able to start building, would be in spring of 26. Okay? Did you have one? Question? Comment?
Now I have two.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so if we would sell St. Christopher.
Right, yeah, right. If we sell the,
Start building until 2026, would we still be able to be here?
right, the question was, if we sold St. Christopher's, would we still be able to be here? Yes. The whole point was that they would lease it back to us so we could keep using it as we have until we could move into the new one. That was what their letter said. It wasn't a suggestion I made or Father Gary made. It was their suggestion. Okay? But like all things, you have to see what's behind it and what's negotiated and all that stuff. And then the bishop would have to give us permission to do that too. So, but I will say this, unless the capital campaign goes absolutely wild, the sale of properties would be needed to be able to help fund this.
Now, we've already had a capital.
There was a capital campaign. It was done, I want to say 8 years ago is when it started, right? The reason why I know this is that St. Francis and Our Lady of the Lakes both came to the diocese making presentations to begin the capital campaigns and get preliminary okays to go forward on that. So we were at the same meeting. I'm also on the Presbyteral Council, and I've been on it for 23 years, so I've seen lots of things come and go. We both got permission to start that capital campaign at the same time. All right? So St. Francis dedicated the addition and the renovation in 2019, June of 2019. We're still waiting here, right? It was a capital campaign that didn't do as well as was hoped, I would say. But I will also say this, I'm not fond of the outfit that the parish hired at the time, Steve Walsh and Associates. I don't think they were the right ones. I recommended that we don't use them. Not we, but I wasn't a we at the time. But anyway, and if there's one thing I heard from parishioners is don't ever hire them again. That's what I heard a lot of. We don't have to though, because the bishop, wanting to get this done, also said that he is going to loan us the development director of the diocese to help us with the capital campaign. The other thing too is I've done a lot of these, so I also know how you work these things. And the first thing you do is you make sure that people have seen the plans, they understand them, before you ever ask them for a single dime.
Well, the money that was contributed.
That's in the bank, and now that's grown to over $3 million. And so that's sitting in the bank, and that will be used for the new building. So it will go to that. That's the, and Carlo, you can correct me, but I think the initial money that they collected for the St. Alice project that never got done was used to buy the 40 acres of land. Right, because that was before the capital campaign took place, and so that land was purchased even before that. So that money that was in the bank was used to purchase that land. Seal? What, right, go ahead and then I'll.
Those first plans
The first plans were not impressive. Okay.
Did not inspire you to want to own it, to want
They didn't inspire.
this does.
Okay.
I've seen the big picture.
And Cecile said this does. Thank you. And then you said some of the money. Right, because I think was it 400,000 that was collected in that at that time? That project way 20 years ago. I think it was like 400,000 that was collected. And what was the cost of the land? 180,000. So the rest of that money is in that same account. There's over $3 million that we have sitting in a building fund right now. It's in the stock account. So when the stocks are good, they're going well. I would put it this way. I think the capital campaign gained about $2.1 or $2.2 million, something like that. It's now well over $3 million. So, and then question, and then
I just know that people are gonna wanna know that if you're hoping to start in the spring of 26.
yes.
How long will it take to build?
How long will the building take to build? Right. Nowadays, something like this could be built in a little over a year. So I would anticipate if they can start in May, after the restrictions are out, the road restrictions are out, that it should be available sometime within a year to year and a half. The St. Francis project, they needed to be very careful with the old church, so they needed to put a steel superstructure up first to then be able to build all around it. And that also included doing renovations of an old building. And when you do that, I mean, the one thing that we did not expect, so we had to sprinkle all the old parts of the building, because the sprinkler system is something you have to have nowadays. And because it was going to be connected, we needed to do a sprinkler system. But going into the attic at St. Francis, when they were ready to start putting in the piping, because I didn't want it showing, they found bats. And they wouldn't go in until the bats were removed, but they're protected in Minnesota, so you can't kill them. So they called a guy in Detroit Lakes who's called, yes, the Batman. They came in, and it was January, so they were hibernating, and they just plucked them off of all the beams, and they filled 2 5-gallon buckets with bats. You never know what you're going to find, right? So despite all those different problems and things, they ended up getting it done within 1 year. Now, something like this is brand new. Brand new is easier to build. They can be doing multiple places at the same time. So I think you could have it done within a year to year and a half, depending on things. Well,
Has there been an estimated cost?
yes, that was the last thing that we do. Currently, right now, we're just under 30,000 square feet, and we're looking at $13.1 to $13.8 million right now. Okay? But as I look at it, I think it's very doable. I think it's very doable. I've done this before. I should also remind you, I said this a year ago, but it's really important to make sure we all understand. The diocese has some stringent regulations about building. You have to have 75% of the cost in cash or pledges, but the pledges are discounted by 25%. So if it ends up being 13 million, we have to have 10 million accounted for, which means that the 3.5 million we have, well, that's good. So now we're looking at another 6.5 million to start. Well, but if we sell properties and we get 3 or 4 million, that adds to that. Well, then if we get 4 million in a capital campaign, we're there. I'm not trying to make it sound easy. The other thing too is, I've done this before, and I will be heavily involved in asking the capital campaign. I mean, I don't want you to run screaming, oh, here comes Father's going to ask me for money. But I think it's important that I'm involved. So at the St. Francis project, I met with over 100 couples personally. The other thing is, for some of the big asks, the bishop has said he will be here to ask with me. So he really wants to get this done because he said, then we don't have questions about this anymore. We can just move to be a parish and really get into mission. Father Michael Gary, who's the son of the parish, he calls this the sleeping giant. He says there's vocations that have come out of here. People really love to go to Mass. They love the Eucharist. He says there's a lot more that could happen in this parish. I said, Father Michael, this was just last week. I said, stop calling it the sleeping giant. He's already taking a shower.
So, Father, I just have to ask one more thing regarding this funding.
Yes.
Is there going to be any way, I know how many very wealthy people from not just caverns, but who come up here year-round at different times.
Sure.
And they're going to church here, and they will love coming to this church.
The question was, are the people, all the people going to be asked, including those who aren't here full time? And the answer is yes, and that's already been happening.
So they can pledge.
Everyone can pledge. Everyone can pledge.
So I live right off of 29.
Yes.
Close.
Right.
One thing on my mind is traffic flow.
Right.
And the very dangerous intersection.
Sure.
of 29 and 371.
Right.
What do you know about?
That was the question was, she lives right off of 29. It's a dangerous intersection. What would traffic flow be like? I don't think we've had a single meeting a year ago and now that we haven't had that question. But we knew right away, I knew right away, we had to start addressing that. So that's one of the reasons that I asked Tommy Woog to be on the building committee. And I also asked him to be the liaison for our parish to the civic entities. So county, city, and MnDOT. He ended up succeeding in bringing all of us together in a meeting, including our architect, to say, this is what's going on, this is what we're going to build, we need to get a solution here. I would say that up until that meeting, MnDOT was saying, we don't think we see the need. The thing that at the end of that meeting, everybody in that room, us and the city and the county and MnDOT officials said, yeah, we really need to do something. And what they told Tommy now is it's slated to be something to be done in 2027. But we then said we'd like it sooner. Now, do we have the power to do it sooner? No, but we keep on asking. But if you look at it, if something is done in 27 and then we open in fall of 27, at least then that would be the case. Now, the other thing too is we've also looked at alternative routes. So if you go where the main entrance is going to be, if you turn right and then turn right on 9th, which is just past our property, that takes you to where, what's that? Lakes Tavern is. So you can go that way to get up going north. And then the Lakes Tavern people would be really happy if you stopped over there too. One thing I discovered, because I had to get there for a variety of things, is anyone on the western or north side of Gull Lake, it's quicker not to go 371, but the other ways. So we will start also advertising alternative routes as well. But MnDOT says it's scheduled to be taken care of in 2027 at this time. What it's going to be, they're not, well, first of all, because it's a highway, it cannot be a traffic circle. That's completely out. They would prefer not to do lights. We would prefer lights. They don't want them, but at least they agree something has to be done. And I want to say thank you to Tommy because he got that meeting together, and that was really important because everyone left that meeting saying, we're all in agreement. And I don't think they also understood this is not a church where you're going to have 100 people at one Mass. I said during the summer, you're going to have 700 to 750 people, not on the big 3 weekends there, all getting out. And I don't think they realized the numbers we were talking about. And once they heard those numbers, I think they saw. The other thing too is they have this rating system, number system. So intersections, if they have accidents and an accident with a death, they're rated. They have a certain point system, is what Tommy said. I don't know if that's true or not, but so I don't know. I got to think that intersection has some pretty high points. So, but I'm not in MnDOT, so.
How many, is it gonna still be 2 priests, or is it just gonna go down to 1?
That's the whole reason for doing this is, if you recall here, for years, you could do multiple masses because we would get help from St. John's Abbey, and then also our diocese got help from the Croziers. They don't have the personnel to do that anymore. While we've done pretty well with vocations in our diocese, especially from this area, Brainerd and Nisswa and Pequot, they have done far worse, and they are not going out and helping like they used to in those years. So that's not an option anymore. The other thing is, other religious orders have left the diocese too. So the order I used to belong to used to have 11 parishes. In fact, the Oblates used to be in Pequot Lakes at one point, but that's another issue. They are not here anymore. So we have one person who's a religious who got permission to be a pastor, but that order is not in charge of the parish anymore. And so we have to do what everyone else has done. This parish technically is a 1-priest parish, except for the weekend masses in the summer. So Cross Lake and Emily. Cross Lake built the church. They used to have 5 masses, 6 masses, 5 masses on a weekend in the summer. They're 3 year-round now because they built a church big enough to accommodate 1 Saturday and 1 Sunday mass. Aiken, they did the same thing. Crosby, they're in the middle of building again, and I think Father said they're hoping to start building in next year, in May of next year, is what I heard from Father Eli. So all throughout this area, that's what's happened, is you have to be able to get it so that we can accommodate it, but also we can't afford to have multiple priests here anymore. What the bishop has said is, I'm willing to make the sacrifice until the new church is built, because I also have a diocesan job, and I'm going to Duluth every week. So I'm commuting to Duluth every week, and I usually come back on Tuesdays. And so he said, and I said, well, Bishop, you're sending me over there. How am I supposed to do the diocesan job and be able to help the people there? And he said, I'll give you a full-time associate until the new building is done. So that's what's happening. So that's why Father Tim is with us, Father Trevor before. So, and since I'm his personnel guy, if he dares try to not give me one until the building is done, I will remind him of his promise. So, okay.
And then, my question before originally was going to be, I've heard St. Alice mentioned and St. Christopher.
Right.
Where does Our Lady of Lourdes?
So the question is, she's heard St. Christopher, St. Alice, Our Lady of Lourdes. So in the diocesan strategic planning process, which took place between 2010 and 2012, the plan was actually promulgated by the bishop, meaning it was, this is it and this is what we need to do. It was taking a look at how many priest personnel we would have at our lowest point. By the way, we reached that point now. So how do you distribute the priests? I will tell you, the Brainerd Deanery ended up having more priests, relatively speaking, than all the others. The Iron Range and Duluth and the Cloquet Deaneries went way down in terms of how many priests. So they had to close and merge a lot of parishes there. In this area, what happened was I was pastor in Brainerd temporarily for 4 years, of all 5. So I had 2,500 families. So about 5,000 people in my parishes, plus the school. And the average, once we got done with the strategic planning process, was that there would be 700 families per pastor. So if you think about it that way, I was more than 3 times that number over there. So that's why they said, no, Brainerd has to be back to having 2 pastors there. Okay? So, and then St. Francis All Saints would have 2 full-time priests. The plan here that the diocese put forth was that you would merge all 3 parishes. You'd still have the 3 churches for now, but you'd have 1 parish and 2 church buildings. That was the plan the diocese put forth. I don't know that that was all communicated well to you all at that time. I was over-communicating in Brainerd because I wanted people to understand what was going on. But that was what the diocese put forth. But then it went back to the deaneries, and every single parish had 2 members of the parish that were appointed by the pastor to be on a planning committee, and you could either accept that plan or suggest another thing, but you couldn't have more priests in that deanery. The diocese said, this is as many priests as you can get. So there was one of the very small churches in one place that was scheduled to close because they were getting like 30 or 40 people per Sunday. And that church recommended that Brainerd stay as 1 parish with 2,500 families. Well, the only people that voted for that were that small parish. Everyone else in the deanery said that doesn't meet the diocesan regulations. So, thank goodness. The plan, that was the plan. The 6 members of the parishes here suggested 1 parish, 1 building. And I remember being at that meeting and I was shocked. You want to have everyone from all the way north and south be in 1 building? But they said, yeah, that's exactly what we did, so we're fine. So we said, all right, if you want it, that's what you're going to have. Coming back to that meeting in 2016 that I was talking about, when you wanted to get the land bought, that was the meeting, and start the capital campaign. It was at that same meeting that the parish said, you know what, no, we really want to go back to the original plan, which was 1 parish, 2 church buildings. And it would be the original plan, which was 30 years ago, which is that Our Lady of Lourdes stays, the building stays, but they don't have the numbers. 75% of the parish live in this area, Pequot and Nisswa. So that building stays, and you build a new one for here. And so that's how you get to having 1 parish, 2 church buildings. And so the parish would eventually have St. Clair and Our Lady of Lourdes as part of the Our Lady of Lakes parish.
So, but whoever is pastor at St. Clair will also be doing the masses at Our Lady of Lourdes?
Correct. The question was, is that 1 priest doing? Yes, 1 priest is going to do it all, because you will have a Saturday Mass at the new church, a Sunday morning Mass at the new church, and then a Sunday morning Mass at Our Lady of Lourdes. 3. Just like you do in Cross Lake and Emily. At Cross Lake and Emily, you have a Saturday night Mass, Sunday morning Mass at Immaculate Heart, and then a later Mass at 10:30 at St. Emily. And why do I know that? Because we started going to St. Emily's in 1969 when I was 6 years old. So that was our second home in terms of churches. So, you know, and like I've said before, my mom said on the day of my ordination, just remember, no one on the big 3 weekends likes to go to Mass longer than an hour. So she said, you better not do that to those people. So anyway, okay. Question? Then here.
You just talking about the masses, is there a thought that they'd add a 4th mass in the summertime then?
No. The whole point is to be able to do 3. That's the other thing. The church's regulations say that a priest should only be doing regularly 3 weekend masses. Now, if you have, right, you'll be down to 1 priest.
But in the summertime, you had said that there'd be 2 priests.
No. The point is, right now, the bishop said he's sending 2 priests here, so I can still do the job he wants me to do in Duluth. But also, we need them for all the masses during the summer. Once you have the new church, you won't need more than 3 masses year-round on a weekend. But that doesn't include if you have a funeral in the morning, etc. The question was, should the altar be looking east? So there was a tradition in the church, a very ancient tradition, where the priest would be facing east when he did mass. Okay? And so oftentimes churches were built so that could accommodate that. But at times, sometimes he'd be facing the wall, sometimes he'd be facing the people. Think of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The Pope can only do that altar that's up there. And ever since it was built 500 years ago, the Pope always faces east. Most of the people face west. So, but what happened then is they said, well, we can't always do that. So then they decided to have something called the liturgical east. Well, not everyone can face east, but if everyone can face the same direction, then we'll just call it the liturgical east. So it's kind of wordplay, right? So this question has come up more than once here, and they said, well, shouldn't everyone be facing east? Well, no. The church has this where normally a priest faces the people now. Can he still do it the other way? Sure, but that's not the normal way that things happen. But that's not a requirement at all. But I will tell you, we will be in the most ancient tradition where the priest faces east, even though the people aren't. Just like St. Peter's Basilica. Okay. Was there another question? Comment? Okay, great. 3 masses year round. Saturday Mass at the New Church, Sunday morning Mass at the New Church, Sunday morning Mass at Our Lady of Lourdes. That's why the church has to be big enough to be able to accommodate that year round.
So the luminous mysteries, I have a problem with them being on the floor.
The luminous mystery, he doesn't like them on the floor. That's certainly a preference, and that's fine. I would just say that a lot of churches have had mosaics on the floor, designs on the floor. At St. Andrew's, when they redid the church, they have a beautiful victorious lamb from the book of Revelation. It's in the front, but it's in the floor, so that's a design. If you have another idea, help us, because that was the best idea that someone came up with. There probably will be people that will walk around it. I think they might walk around it. Some might, Or they might just stop and then they can pray that 10 Hail Marys there too. Okay, Cecile?
Another good thing about not having a slant floor when you think about it, because this going downhill, and I will say our son-in-law just had hips replacement.
Yeah.
He has a lot of trouble on any,
Incline.
irrespective of the yard, so this is good that you're not having a slant.
The comment was that she's happy that we don't have the slant because her son had some surgery, and any son-in-law, had hip surgery, and the slant was very difficult. I will tell you that when we did our visits of these churches, the church at Sauk Rapids had a severe slant. I actually did a wedding there, and I remember walking down it and thinking, I'm glad I can walk on this, because it would be really difficult to do. There was one church that had a slight slant, and that wasn't so bad, but then you really didn't gain a lot being in the back, because they had just 3 steps up to the altar. So that's how we compromised and said flat, but 5 steps to the altar. And then the first step is going to be a wide one, and then the other one's going up.
And it's even hard just for elderly, speaking as
Right.
almost 80.
But it's hard for the elderly, true. But then again, that's why we're also going to have the ramps on both sides. The slant, right, yes. Yeah. Sure, yep. Okay. We've been going for almost 2 hours, folks. Ironically, I can't believe but this has been kind of fun, actually. I don't know. But in any case, I really do appreciate you coming here. Every one of your comments and questions has been recorded. It will be part of the record that the building committee will deal with. And all those comments are actually then being collated into the different topics. If you still want to write something, Krissa and Deb have writing tools and those. So if you want to take one and write something, you are more than welcome to do so. And then why don't we get these set out here so that people can come and take a closer look. And before we do that, one final prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, thank you, everybody.